Hey, thanks for checking in. This is Becky with Diakonos Designs, and I wanted to share with you today a quick method for finishing the ends of woven leather and chain bracelets, where we're going to be using a small Rolo ring in this spot here to crimp the leather and make a really nice clean finish. So that's what it'll look like when we're done, and I'll demonstrate here. The first thing we need to do, please forgive that, I'll try harder, is release from a little segment of chain a couple of rings. And this is Rolo chain that's 3.8 millimeters in diameter, and if you separate the rings, you have a nice solid ring that's soldered and makes a really useful crimp for bracelets or anything else. All right, that'll be the end of that. I apologize. So these little rings need to be set up to work as effectively as they possibly can, and since we want two pieces of leather to go through them, I've found it works really nicely to do what I call ovaling them. So I like to use the end of a bent nose pliers, or not the end, but the kind of elbow side of it, on a very flat surface. When you're doing these, you don't want to do it on a beading mat. And I just squish it a little bit so that it's enough room for the leather that I need to go through, but it's clearly made it into an oval shape, which will make the whole process simpler in terms of getting the leather through the oval Rolo ring, as well as for crimping it. So the way that this bracelet finishes, we are going to be going through the very last ring at the clasp, and instead of putting a bead on like you would have here, I'm going to put one of the ovaled Rolo rings on. So that goes on, and then we'll continue weaving through the Rolo rings like we would have ordinarily done. And it's a small spot, so we'll be patient. Get that through. I often will use my pliers to just pull it. And continue through the next ring, and then in this spot where I ordinarily would have put a bead, I'm going to put that old Rolo ring again, and then go through the last Rolo ring. So I've got the two flattened Rolo rings positioned between the Rolo rings that are attached to the clasp. So now we'll fold it over and go through the same Rolo rings, all of the same rings that I just went through. So notice that the leather is cut to a really nice sharp point. It's really important with this guy. And then as I'm trying to get the leather through this flattened Rolo ring, I'm using my finger on the back side to kind of push it up so I have an open space there to get it in. And you see I'm kind of twisting. I might use my pliers to push the leather through. On the back side of this, we're never going through the textured ring, we're only going through the solid rings. You might use pliers to kind of pull the last smushed Rolo ring into place, and I'm going to use pliers to just push the leather through and continue pushing through the very last Rolo ring. This is not my favorite pliers. It doesn't have a very grippy tip, so I might just get my fingernails in there to pull it through. So The leather's gone through all those roller rings, the regular 4.8 that are part of the bracelet, as well as the 3.8 mil that are flattened and they're part of the crimping. And so the leather goes through all of them. I'm going to turn it to the front and snug everything up to where I feel like it is not, there aren't any bumps of leather sticking out in a way that I don't like. And especially toward the end, you want to make sure it's snug but not too snug. I'm quite happy with that right there. So then, working from the back, I'm gonna come in with my pliers, and again, I like a bent nose. Regular chain nose would probably work fine too, but this just helps you get right in there and just smush it carefully and evenly, and then smush the other one. And you see it slips out a little bit. I'm going to say part of that is because the angle that I'm working at this, in order to make it easier for it to show on the screen, because it isn't ordinarily quite so slippery. If you come at it really nice and straight on, it's not going to slip out quite so much like it's doing for me. And then I like to go at it from the other side, and I'm going to give it a nice smush. Not too tight, not too loose. If it's not tight enough, of course, it won't hold. But if it's too tight, you'll cut through the leather, and boy, we don't want to do that at this point. So I've tightened that. You can see how much flatter those crimps are right here and right here on the edges. And what I like to do to test is just give them a good strong pull. Wiggle it with your fingernail. Try to pull it out. There's nothing moving on this, so I'm happy that it can be snipped off and called done. So then I'm going to simply snip the leather close on that side and then do the same over here. And it makes a really nice, barely noticeable finish using jump rings or using roller rings that match the chain that was part of the leather. So thank you so much for stopping in, and if you have questions on any of this, don't hesitate to give us a call at the shop or send an email or connect with us on Facebook. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.